Good morning and welcome to Madeira. If you're new around here, hi, I'm Caroline and I'm travelling around this gorgeous island for a couple of weeks with my partner Andy. And today we are being joined by Els, who we've met at the Backpackers Hostel. Today we're going to be doing a gorgeous coastal hike called the Verada Larano. We're going to be going along to a viewpoint called Boca do Risco, and it's supposed to be a relatively flat and easy walk, but it does give spectacular views out across the ocean. We're staying in Porto da Cruz, so we took a drive of about 7 or 8 minutes up the very steep hillside, and where the tarmac road ends and a dirt track starts, that's where we parked up the car. Our rental car company said that we cannot drive on anything except for the tarmac. There is also a cable car system and it looks incredibly rickety and old. It's nothing like the one that we took when we were in the capital at the start of this trip. That's the point where you want to park up the car. There's a few Levada signs, and the first part of the walk, I'd say for the first sort of 15-20 or so minutes, it has actually been quite enclosed with a lot of plants and not the most amazing of views, but we've now gotten to a point where we can both look back onto Porto da Cruz and that view is epic. And then we've also got some amazing views out towards the east, and some of these sea stacks are great, and then you've got the sea arches. This is completely different to the Levada walks we've done so far and I'm loving it. Every now and again on this trail there are these viewpoints that you can just wander down to and they jut out, and unfortunately there's an awful lot of trees and shrubs that have grown up, so it's actually quite difficult to get a great view from them. So every single one that we've come down to so far has been very similar to this. I'm actually finding that the views are just a little bit better from openings on the trail itself. We've just passed this random pond, and unfortunately I think I scared away the goldfish with the fuzzy microphone that I've got on the top of my camera. It's not just like a pool of water that's been created because of a waterfall or anything like that. It looks like someone's come along, they've built it, and there's no way in which these goldfish would just be, well, I don't think so. I mean, let me know in the comments below if you know otherwise, but I wouldn't have thought the goldfish would be here wild the way in which trout have been where we've been elsewhere on the island. It just seems such a random thing. Does someone have to come along and feed them to keep them alive? The All Trails app rates this hike as a medium difficulty, but I'd read that a lot of people were saying that it's nonsense and it really needs to be downgraded to an easy because of how flat it is. Some people have argued that the lack of railings is what should make it a medium difficulty, but what I've found is that you do have railings in the sections where you do have the very, very severe sheer drops down to the coast below, and also where the path is narrowed quite a bit. But if there's quite a wide section of path, yes, there aren't any barriers, but you've got so much path space, you can move right up against the rocks and you're not really in any danger of tippy tumbling off of the edge. I think that in comparison to Levada walks, which are very, very flat and the incline is very gradual and very constant, this one does have a lot more ups and downs to it. So I think if you're comparing it to a Madeira Levada walk, I can understand why people are saying that it's a medium difficulty, but I think as far as walking or hiking goes, it is an easy trail. The hike out to this point ended up being a lot shorter than what we had envisaged. We were actually expecting that this would probably take up most of the day with a late start and then a slightly earlier finish, but it is 11 o'clock in the morning. Also, the viewpoint that it took us out to didn't really give the best of views. I feel like we had better views on the route out here. So we're now turning around and heading back towards the car, and we this afternoon are hoping to go to a few different points of interest or potentially doing a slightly longer Levada walk. I think it's to be decided whilst we're walking back to the car, so we'll keep you posted. This epic fog and drizzly rain cloud has just been pushed in off of the northern side of Madeira, and so all of those amazing sea views that we had coming out have just been completely wiped out. And you're just like looking out into this sea of absolute fog, but of course we're getting completely drizzled on at the moment too, so we've all popped on our rain macs just to help our clothes not get absolutely soaking wet. When we started our hike yesterday, we also had something similar where rain macs got put on, but then it did clear up as the day went on. So we'll just kind of see how the rest of this hike back to the car goes, because it might end up being that we decide this afternoon to do something that's a bit more inland if this foggy, misty rain cloud remains. We've driven just a little bit further inland and a little bit up into the hills, and in true Madeira weather style, it has brightened up. We've got blue sky, even though there's like dapples of clouds, but if you look down towards the coast you can still see the really thick fog that we were hiking on that coastal trail in by the end of it. We've come to Ribeiro Frio because there is a Balcoes walk. I believe it's only just over a kilometre to get out onto it, but there's supposed to be a really beautiful viewpoint at the end of it. But because of how easy it is and how short it is, I have heard that it is overridden with tourists and it's really, really busy. So we'll just see how it goes. I've got a nasty suspicion that we have managed to park in the wrong place again, much like we did yesterday, which has made us realise that we have started this walk at the wrong point. It definitely said that it was a flat walk. We are definitely going up a lot of stairs at the moment. Much like most of the other Levada walks, as soon as we've come up those steep steps, we're out of the sun. It's cooled down considerably because we are in the thick of the mountain on the left-hand side, and then over on the right-hand side, you've got all of the trees and the bushes keeping the sun out of our way. But when you look through the little holes in the branches and the leaves, you can see that there is quite an epic valley down there. I'm not too sure if it's that we've got really lucky or if it might be the time of the day that we've come, but when we spoke to other people at the hostel who'd come along to Balcoes, they said there were so many people everywhere. It was really difficult to be able to take a photograph. Don't get me wrong, we don't have it to ourselves, but there's really not many people here in comparison to what I was expecting. It's got gorgeous views up onto Pico do Arieiro, which is where we were a few days ago for the sunrise. And unfortunately you can't see Pico Ruivo just because there is another mountain peak that's covering it. But we have been able to work out with the telefocal lens as we sort of followed the ridgeline across the top. You can just work out where the hut was that you could buy like drinks from and fill up your water just before you then make that final ascent up to Pico Ruivo. Looking out in the other direction down the valley, I'm pretty sure that the houses closest to us aren't Santana just because the village looks to be quite small, but I do think that probably on the other side of that hill mound is probably Santana, and since we've been having lunch here it's completely cleared up and you can actually see the sea from up here too. You've also got really spectacular views down into the valley so you can see the really bouldery and rocky stream. We also think that the building that's nestled right up into the valley is a hydroelectricity plant, because one of the things that the Levada water systems also do, as well as giving irrigation to crops, is to also produce an awful lot of hydroelectricity with the excess water that it's not able to use. Given the fact that it is only half a kilometre to get out to this point, and it's quite a busy road because of different things that are around here, such as those peaks and the Ribiero Frio, I would highly recommend coming out here. I think even if you've got a really young toddler, it's probably doable for just about everyone, and the views that you get from this point are stunning and easily worth the half a kilometre out and half a kilometre back to the car. Okay, I take back what I was saying a few minutes ago about how quiet it was, yet we didn't have it completely to ourselves, because right now it's just me, Els and Andy, and it's just the three of us who've come up here in the car together, and we have Balcoes completely to ourselves. Does this ever happen? Have you ever been able to come to Balcoes and have it completely to yourselves? This is just wonderful. Okay, I think they want to take some photographs with no one here, so I'm going to go and get out of their pictures. We came along to Balcoes round about lunchtime, and I am wondering if maybe it's super busy first thing in the morning before people do something bigger, or if it's super busy at the end of the day just after people have rounded up doing something bigger like a big hike. As we have been walking back out though, we have passed several other people who are heading out to that viewpoint, but maybe to avoid the crowds you want to come midday. From Balcoes, we have walked along the Levada, and it's taken us up to where the road meets the Levada, and there is a trout farm. Don't really know too much about it, and unfortunately it's not free to enter. In fairness, it is only €1 per person, but because we don't know what that euro is going to get us, and we are also wanting to go and do something else this afternoon, we've decided to give the trout farm a miss, but instead we did the very typical thing of having gone to a little bar. It's called John's Poncha. We've got some ice creams and iced tea and just had a little bit of a sit down in the shade. And now what we're going to do is we're going to head back to the car, and then I think the plan is next to go to some Santana houses down in Santana. We found where we could have parked the car so that it was on the same level as the Levada, meaning that we could have cut out all of those steps in the exposed sun a little bit earlier on. If you just keep on driving up exactly the same road, you'll see a big bend. There'll probably be loads of cars parked up alongside it, and there's also the official signage saying that it's the Balcoes Levada walk. The only difference is that instead of it being 1/2 kilometre long, which is what it was for us originally, it's 1.5 kilometres, but much flatter. We come along to those traditional houses, but there's only about 4 of them, and a couple of them are open, but they're shops rather than the ability to look around inside to see what the houses look like way back in history. And then I think the ones that don't have shops on the inside, it's just a case of standing outside and posing for some photographs. I think it's one of those things of we've come, we've seen it, and now we're going to leave. Very interestingly though, one of the houses doesn't seem to be painted in quite the same colours as the other, and there's like a proper gate across the front, and I think someone probably still lives there. As cute as it is, those shops inside are tiny, so I imagine it's probably one really small bedroom way up into the eaves. And then the fact that you've got all of these tourists just wandering around outside, let me know in the comments below, would you be happy living in amongst all of these very touristy houses? So after our day out of adventuring everywhere, what's really awesome is that the hostel are doing a pizza evening, and it's going to be where loads of the guests who are staying here are all going to get together, and it's going to be a case of being able to like dig into lots of different types of pizzas. And so I've been told what everything is here, and I'm really hoping that I can remember everything. So we have got mushrooms, we've got an aged cheese which comes from the Azores, we've got oregano, we've got confit cherry tomatoes, we've got Madeira and basil, we've got a tapenade of olives and garlic, we've got another confit of onions, confit of garlic. Over here we've got gigantic red bell peppers. These ones are aubergines, thank you. So we've got aubergines, and then we've got courgettes, we have got capers, we've got obviously the tomato sauce, we've got raisins, we've got salami and chilies, which also come from here on Madeira. We've got rocket or arugula, depending on if you're American. We've got some mozzarella, some gorgonzola, sauce made out of red bell peppers. So the pizzas are going to kind of be a whole load of different things, and I cannot wait for this feast this evening. tonight has been such an enjoyable evening and really different to anything else that we've really experienced on our travels to date. It had the people who were staying here upstairs in the backpackers hostel, but also there's been a lot of locals who flocked here too. And because it wasn't a case of us ordering our own individual pizzas and instead just signing up and saying, yeah, like give us whatever, it was just whatever the first pizza was that was cooked, it was then put out and we could all grab a slice. It meant that everyone was eating at exactly the same time, and it wasn't like anyone's food was sort of waiting whilst another one's was cooking and one person's was going cold. I got to try a whole load of pizzas that I personally wouldn't have ordered off of a menu. So there's been ones with like raisins and walnuts in them and like different types of cheeses. And I think that's the other really nice thing about the way in which they've designed the evening, is that you get to actually try a whole load of pizzas that you wouldn't have tried if you just ordered them individually. I think the setup that this hostel has got is great. It's been so easy to meet other travellers and make friends, and you can probably hear like how sociable it is outside at the moment. But we have made some plans for tomorrow again with our friend Els, who again we've met here at the hostel, and it is going to involve a hike that we're going to start off in the morning. So we're not going to stay too late tonight with this, and we will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.